Commander Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the starship Defiant, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. The station was unlike anything humans had ever built. It stretched for miles in every direction, with towers that sparkled like diamonds and docking bays that could fit entire cities. "First time seeing Coalition architecture?" asked Lisa Grant, the ship's tactical officer. She walked up beside him, her uniform crisp and her expression curious. Jake nodded. "It's incredible. Makes our best space stations look like tin cans." The Galactic Defense Coalition had sent the invitation 3 months ago. Earth's government was still new to space travel. They had only reached other star systems 20 years before. Most humans thought they would spend decades learning basic space technology before anyone noticed them. But the Coalition noticed. They sent a message directly to Earth's Space Command. The message was simple but shocking. They wanted humans to join their most important military exercise. The Nexus War Games happened every 50 years. Only the best species in the galaxy were invited. Ben Carter, the ship's chief engineer, joined them at the window. "Look at those ships," he said, pointing to the docking bays. "Some of them are bigger than our entire fleet." Jake could see what Ben meant. Ships from 12 different alien species filled the station's bays. Some looked like living creatures with smooth, flowing lines. Others appeared to be made of pure crystal that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. A few seemed to be built from metal so black it absorbed all light around them. "Incoming transmission from the station," announced the communications officer from her station. "Put it on screen, Jake," ordered. The main screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared, but calling it a face was generous. The creature looked like a giant insect with multiple eyes and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. Its voice came through the translation system in perfect English. "Human vessel Defiant, this is Admiral Zixthul of the Vectar Imperial Navy. Welcome to Nexus Station. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. Your quarters and briefing materials are ready." "Thank you, Admiral," Jake replied. "We look forward to participating in the exercises." The insect alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Participation is an interesting word choice, Commander. We shall discuss your role shortly." The transmission ended. Lisa raised an eyebrow. That sounded almost condescending. "Maybe it's just a translation issue," Jake said, though he had the same feeling. An hour later, they sat in a massive briefing room with representatives from all 12 Coalition species. Jake felt very small among the aliens. The Vectar were insect-like creatures that stood nearly 8 feet tall. The Ethon looked like living crystals that changed color when they spoke. The Morden resembled walking trees with bark-like skin and eyes that glowed green. At the front of the room, a crystalline being that introduced itself as strategist Velnara began the presentation. Its voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The Nexus War Games have trained our finest military minds for 3,000 years, Velnara said. The walls around them lit up with holographic displays showing space battles. Each exercise tests our ability to defend against the greatest threat we can imagine." The displays showed massive robotic ships attacking planets and space stations. The robots moved in perfect formations, their ships sleek and deadly. "The Iron Swarm," Admiral Zixthul explained, his mandibles clicking. "A robotic enemy that shows no mercy and accepts no surrender. They are programmed to be the perfect opponent. They learn from every battle and adapt to every strategy." Jake watched the holographic battles. The robots were impressive, but something about their movements seemed predictable. They followed patterns even when adapting. Historical records show that defeating the Iron Swarm requires careful planning and patience. Velnara continued. "The shortest victory in our records took 8 years. The longest took 15. Most experienced species averaged 10 to 12 years for complete victory." Lisa leaned over to whisper to Jake. "Years? They plan wars that last years?" "The simulation runs at accelerated time," Admiral Zixthul said, apparently hearing her whisper. "What feels like hours to us represents months in the simulation. What feels like days becomes years. This allows for proper strategic development and resource management." Ben Carter raised his hand. "What exactly is our role in this exercise?" The two alien leaders exchanged what might have been glances. It was hard to tell with beings that had compound eyes and crystalline faces. "Humans will be assigned to Sector 7, Velnara said. "It is a defensive position on the outer rim of our territory. Your task will be to observe Coalition tactics and maintain your assigned positions while more experienced forces carry out the primary objectives. So we're babysitters, Danny Walsh muttered. Danny was Earth's chosen simulation commander, a veteran of several conflicts who had volunteered for this mission. You are learners, Admiral Zixthol corrected. This is your first experience with galactic-scale warfare. We do not expect significant tactical contributions from such a young species. Jake felt his jaw tighten. He looked around at his crew. Lisa's face had gone carefully neutral, which usually meant she was angry. Ben was frowning at his tablet, probably already thinking about the technical aspects. Danny looked like he was about to say something that would get them all in trouble. Of course, Jake said carefully. We appreciate the opportunity to learn from more experienced forces. The briefing continued for 3 more hours. The aliens showed detailed maps of the simulated galaxy, explained resource allocation systems, and discussed communication protocols. Everything was incredibly complex and formal. Each species had specific roles based on thousands of years of military tradition. When the briefing finally ended, the human delegation walked back to their quarters in silence. Only when they were safely inside with the door sealed did anyone speak. They think we're children, Lisa said flatly. Worse, Danny replied. They think we're pets. Something cute to watch while the real adults handle business. Ben was already working on his tablet, reviewing the technical specifications they had been given. Their ships are incredible, but their tactic, he shook his head. Everything is so slow and formal. They plan battles like they're writing poetry. Jake sat down heavily in a chair. What do you think, Danny? You're running this simulation for us. Danny was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and Jake recognized that expression. It was the same look Danny got right before he did something completely unexpected in training exercises. I think, Danny said slowly, that these aliens have been playing the same game for 3,000 years. They've gotten very good at it, but maybe that means they've forgotten how to play it differently. What are you thinking? Lisa asked. I'm thinking that we have 6 days before the simulation starts, Danny replied. And I'm thinking that maybe it's time someone showed the galaxy what humans do when someone tells us we can't win. The next morning, Captain Danny Walsh gathered his team in the human delegation's private meeting room. While the aliens held elaborate war councils in massive chambers filled with hundreds of advisors, the humans sat around a simple table with coffee and basic tablets. Show me what we're working with, Danny said to Amy Rodriguez, their best pilot. Amy had flown everything from atmospheric fighters to deep space cruisers. She was known for making impossible maneuvers look routine. Amy activated the holographic display. We have 12 ships total, 6 destroyers, 4 cruisers, and 2 support vessels. The Coalition gave us older models, but they're still more advanced than anything Earth has built. Weapons? Asked Chris Thompson, their intelligence analyst. Chris had spent years studying alien technology and had a gift for finding weaknesses in complex systems. Standard Coalition loadout, replied Kate Williams, their systems specialist. Energy cannons, missile systems, and defensive shields. Nothing special but effective. Danny studied the ship specifications while sipping his coffee. Around the station, he knew that alien commanders were deep in planning sessions that would last for days. The Vectar Admiral Zixthol was probably meeting with hundreds of advisors, creating detailed battle plans that accounted for every possible scenario over the coming years of simulated warfare. What about the enemy? Danny asked. Chris pulled up files on the Iron Swarm. Robotic forces with adaptive artificial intelligence. They learn from every battle and adjust their tactics accordingly. The Coalition has detailed records of their behavior patterns going back thousands of simulations. Show me those patterns, Danny said. For the next hour, Chris walked them through decades of Iron Swarm data. The robots always followed similar strategies. They would probe Coalition defenses with small forces, gather intelligence, then launch coordinated attacks on weak points. They built up their forces slowly and methodically, never taking unnecessary risks. They're predictable, Amy observed. Even when they adapt, they follow logical patterns. That's exactly what makes them dangerous, Kate disagreed. They don't make emotional decisions or take crazy risks. They just grind down their opponents through superior planning and resource management. Danny was quiet, studying the data. Something was bothering him about the whole situation. Finally, he spoke up. Chris, Show me how the Coalition typically responds to Iron Swarm attacks. More data filled the holographic display. Coalition tactics were even more predictable than the robots. They formed defensive lines, held territory, and gradually pushed forward through careful advances. Every move was calculated and safe. It's like watching chess, observed Tony Garcia, commander of the destroyer Liberty. Everyone knows the rules and follows them. Exactly, Danny said, suddenly excited. That's exactly what it is. They're all playing the same game by the same rules. The robots are programmed to fight against Coalition tactics, and the Coalition always uses the same tactics. Ben Carter looked up from his technical review. The simulation runs on accelerated time, but the ship systems operate in real time. That means we experience everything at normal speed, but the simulation treats our actions as if they're happening much faster. What does that mean practically? Lisa asked. It means if we move fast in real time, we move incredibly fast in simulation time, Ben explained. But the aliens don't think that way. They're used to planning everything in advance and executing slowly. Danny stood up and began pacing. Kate, how long would it take to modify our ship's navigation systems? For what purpose? Kate asked carefully. Micro-jumps, rapid short-range teleportation, the kind of movement that would be impossible to track or predict. Kate's eyes widened. The Coalition considers that kind of maneuvering inefficient and wasteful. It uses too much energy and puts stress on the ships. But it would work? Technically, yes. The ships can handle it and the simulation parameters allow it. The aliens just never do it because it doesn't fit their tactical doctrine. Amy leaned forward. Danny, what are you thinking? Danny stopped pacing and looked at his team. I'm thinking that we have 6 days to prepare for something the aliens expect to take 10 years. I'm thinking that maybe the reason it takes them so long is because they're playing by rules that don't actually exist. Explain, Lisa said. Look at this data, Danny said, pointing to the holographic displays. The Iron Swarm is programmed to respond to traditional Coalition tactics. Slow advances, careful resource management, prolonged sieges. But what if we don't do any of that? Chris was following Danny's logic. You want to hit them fast before they can adapt. Faster than fast, Danny replied. I want to hit them so hard and so quickly that their adaptation protocols can't keep up. The artificial intelligence needs time to analyze new tactics and develop responses. What if we don't give it that time? That's incredibly risky, Tony pointed out. If it doesn't work, we'll be completely exposed. As opposed to our current plan of sitting in the corner and watching? Danny asked. They've already told us they don't expect us to contribute anything meaningful. What's the worst that could happen? Ben was working on his tablet running calculations. If we modify the ships for rapid assault operations, we could strike at multiple targets simultaneously. The Iron Swarm would have to choose between defending everything poorly or defending some things well. And while they're trying to decide, we keep hitting new targets, Amy added, understanding the strategy. Kate was accessing the simulation's technical specifications. There's something else, she said slowly. The Iron Swarm has central command nodes that coordinate their forces. If those nodes were disabled quickly enough, the individual robot ships would lose coordination. How quickly is quickly enough? Danny asked. Based on their programming, they have backup protocols that activate after 30 minutes of lost communication, Kate replied. If we could take out the primary command structure in less time than that, the entire Iron Swarm would collapse, Chris finished. They'd lose central coordination before the backup systems could take over. Lisa was shaking her head. You're talking about ending a 10-year war in less than an hour. I'm talking about ending a 10-year war in less than an hour because it was never supposed to be a 10-year war in the first place, Danny corrected. It only takes 10 years because everyone has agreed that it should take 10 years. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. What Danny was proposing went against everything the Coalition had taught them about proper warfare. It was reckless, unprecedented, and completely insane. The aliens will think we've lost our minds, Amy said. Good, Danny replied. Let them think that. While they're trying to figure out what we're doing, we'll be finishing the job. Ben looked up from his calculations. I can have the ship modifications ready in 4 days. Kate, how long to map out the Iron Swarm command structure? Danny asked. 2 days for basic mapping, another day for targeting priorities, Kate replied. Amy, can you plan approach routes that will keep us undetected until we're ready to strike? Amy grinned. Give me the target list and I'll have you there before the robots know we've left our starting positions. Danny looked around the table at his team. Anyone want to back out? This could be the biggest military disaster in human history. Or the biggest victory, Tony said with a smile. Either way, it'll be interesting, Lisa added. Danny nodded. Then let's show the galaxy what humans do when someone tells us something is impossible. The simulation began at precisely 800 station time. In the massive Coalition Command Center, Admiral Zixthul and strategist Velnara watched as hundreds of holographic displays showed their fleets deploying across simulated space. 12 species had positioned their ships according to carefully planned formations that had been refined over centuries. The humans were assigned to monitor Sector 7, a quiet region on the edge of Coalition territory. Their ships appeared as small blue dots on the tactical displays, sitting exactly where they were supposed to be. The alien commanders barely glanced at that section of the map. Iron Swarm activation in 30 seconds, announced a Vectar technician. Across the simulated galaxy, robotic forces began powering up. The Iron Swarm materialized in the dark spaces between stars, their ships sleek and deadly. According to the simulation's programming, they had been building their forces for decades, preparing for this moment. Swarm forces detected, reported another technician. Initial probe attacks beginning in Sectors 2, 5, and 9. Admiral Zixthul nodded with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as expected. The Iron Swarm would test Coalition defenses with small attacks, gather intelligence about their capabilities, then begin the long process of systematic conquest. His own forces were ready to respond with time-tested strategies that had proven effective for millennia. In Sector 7, Captain Danny Walsh sat in the command chair of his modified destroyer. Around him, his crew worked at stations that had been completely rebuilt over the past 4 days. The changes looked minor to outside observers, but the ship now had capabilities that no Coalition vessel had ever possessed. All ships report ready, announced Lisa Grant from her tactical station. Kate, confirm Iron Swarm command node locations, Danny ordered. Kate Williams worked quickly at her modified console. Primary command nexus confirmed in the Galactic Center, 17 secondary nodes distributed throughout their territory. Backup coordination systems are offline as expected. Amy navigation status? Amy Rodriguez grinned from the pilot station. Micro-jump calculations complete. We can hit all primary targets in sequence, 47 seconds total transit time. Ben Carter looked up from his engineering station. All ship's systems modified and ready. We've got maybe 6 hours of this before the engines need major maintenance, but that should be more than enough. Chris, any changes in Iron Swarm deployment? Chris Thompson studied his intelligence displays. Negative. They're following standard attack patterns, just like the historical data predicted. Probe attacks on Coalition perimeter positions. No attention to our sector. Danny took a deep breath. In the Coalition Command Center, alien strategists were probably settling in for months of careful planning and gradual advances. They had no idea that the war was about to end before most of their ships had even moved. All ships. This is Danny. Execute planned lightning. The 12 human ships vanished from Sector 7 in a series of micro-jumps that happened so quickly the Coalition sensors couldn't track them. One moment they were sitting peacefully on the edge of space, the next moment they had disappeared entirely. What just happened? Admiral Zixthul demanded, staring at displays that showed empty space where the human ships had been. Unknown, sir, replied a confused technician. The human vessels appear to have left their assigned positions. Contact them immediately, the Admiral ordered. But the humans were already gone, traveling through space in a series of impossibly rapid jumps that took them deep into Iron Swarm territory. Amy Rodriguez piloted their ship through asteroid fields and sensor shadows, following routes that conventional Coalition tactics would never consider. First target in sight, Amy announced. Through the view screen, they could see an Iron Swarm command node. It looked like a massive black pyramid floating in space. surrounded by defensive ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. According to Coalition intelligence, this node coordinated robot forces across an entire sector. "Beginning attack run," announced Tony Garcia from the destroyer Liberty. The human ships struck without warning. They appeared around the command node in a coordinated pattern, firing concentrated bursts at specific weak points that Kate had identified in the structure. The Iron Swarm defenders tried to respond, but they were programmed to expect gradual attacks, not sudden overwhelming force. "Target destroyed," reported Sandra Klein from the cruiser Vanguard. "Moving to next objective." The humans were already jumping away before the Iron Swarm artificial intelligence could process what had happened. Their attack had lasted less than 3 minutes, but it had eliminated a command node that Coalition forces would normally spend weeks trying to capture. In the Coalition command center, alarms began sounding. "Multiple Iron Swarm command nodes under attack," reported a panicked technician. "Unknown attackers using unidentified tactics." "Show me," Admiral Zixthol ordered. The main display changed to show Iron Swarm territory. Command nodes that had been solid and secure moments before were winking out of existence one by one. The attackers appeared briefly on sensors before vanishing again, moving too quickly for the tracking systems to follow. "Are those ships human?" Strategist Velnara asked in disbelief. "Impossible," Admiral Zixthol replied. "The humans are in Sector 7 on defensive assignment." "Sector 7 shows no human ships, sir," the technician reported. On the tactical display, another Iron Swarm command node disappeared. Then another. The robots were trying to respond, sending fleets to defend their remaining command structure, but the attackers kept striking faster than the defenders could move. Pete Johnson worked frantically at his electronic warfare station, jamming Iron Swarm communications as fast as he could target them. "Their coordination is breaking down," he reported. "Individual robot ships are losing contact with Central Command. 13 nodes down, 4 to go," Kate announced. "Primary nexus still heavily defended." Danny watched the tactical display as they jumped toward the Iron Swarm's Central Command. This was the critical moment. If they could take out the primary nexus before the backup systems activated, the entire robot fleet would lose coordination simultaneously. "Multiple Iron Swarm fleets converging on our position," Chris warned. "They're finally starting to predict our movements." "Too late," Amy said grimly. "Final jump in 10 seconds. The Iron Swarm's primary command nexus was a massive structure that looked like a geometric star made of black metal. It was surrounded by their most powerful defensive fleets and protected by energy shields that could withstand sustained bombardment for years. But the humans weren't planning sustained bombardment. "All ships, concentrated fire on shield generators," Danny ordered. "Maximum power, everything we've got." 12 human ships appeared around the nexus simultaneously, firing every weapon they had at precisely calculated weak points in the defensive shields. The Iron Swarm defenders scrambled to respond, but the attack was too sudden and too concentrated. The shields flickered and died. "Shields down," Lisa reported. "Structure exposed." "Nancy Davis, Mike Anderson, execute insertion protocol," Danny ordered. 2 small teams in specialized assault craft had been waiting for this moment. They flew directly into the command nexus through openings that Kate had identified, carrying explosives designed to destroy the robot command systems from inside. "Charges placed," reported Lieutenant Nancy Davis over the communication system. "Detonation in 30 seconds. The human ships pulled back as the Iron Swarm desperately tried to stop what was happening. Robot fleets fired everything they had at the retreating attackers. But it was too late. The command nexus exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across the simulated galaxy. Suddenly, every Iron Swarm ship stopped moving. Without central coordination, and with their backup systems not yet activated, the artificial intelligence controlling the robot fleet went into standby mode. In the Coalition Command Center, silence fell as displays showed the impossible. The Iron Swarm had surrendered. Victory conditions had been achieved. The simulation was over. Total elapsed time, 58 minutes. The Coalition Command Center fell completely silent. Hundreds of alien officers stared at displays that showed something impossible. The Iron Swarm, an enemy that had never been defeated in less than 8 years, had surrendered after less than 1 hour of combat. Admiral Zixthel's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "Run system diagnostics," he ordered. "There must be an error in the simulation." Strategist Velnara's crystalline form shifted through colors of confusion and disbelief. "All systems report normal operation," she announced after checking with the technicians. "The simulation parameters are functioning correctly." "Then explain how 12 human ships destroyed an enemy that requires entire fleets to defeat," Admiral Zixthol demanded. The main display showed the aftermath of the human assault. Iron Swarm ships drifted powerless throughout simulated space, their artificial intelligence systems locked in standby mode. The robot fleet that should have taken years to defeat had been completely neutralized by surgical strikes on command and control systems. "Replay the attack sequence," Velnara ordered. The holographic display rewound to show the human ship's movement patterns. What they saw defied every principle of galactic warfare. Instead of forming battle lines and engaging in prolonged combat, the humans had used rapid micro-jumps to appear and disappear across vast distances. They struck at critical infrastructure rather than fighting enemy fleets directly. A Morden commander, his bark-like skin dark with confusion, spoke up. "This is not how warfare is conducted. Where are the formation tactics, the resource management, the territorial control?" "They ignored all of that," observed a crystalline Ethon officer. "They focused entirely on destroying command structures. It's unprecedented." In space, the human ships were returning to their original positions in Sector 7. Captain Danny Walsh sat in his command chair, watching as his exhausted crew tried to process what they had just accomplished. The ship's engines were smoking from the stress of rapid micro-jumps, and several systems showed warning lights. "All ships report successful mission completion," Lisa announced. "No human casualties. Minor system damage across the fleet." Ben Carter was already working on emergency repairs. "We pushed these ships way beyond their design limits," he reported, "but they held together." "Amy, navigation status." Amy Rodriguez slumped in her pilot's seat, exhausted from the intensity of piloting through impossible maneuvers. "I never want to do that many micro-jumps again," she said with a tired grin, "but we got everyone home." Kate Williams was analyzing the simulation's response to their tactics. "The Iron Swarm's artificial intelligence never adapted to our strategy," she reported. "We moved too fast for its learning protocols to analyze and counter." "Incoming transmission from Coalition Command," Chris Thompson announced. "Put it through," Danny ordered. Admiral Zixthol's insectoid face appeared on the screen. His compound eyes seemed to be having trouble focusing, and his mandibles were clicking in what appeared to be distress. "Commander Walsh," the Admiral said slowly. "Please explain what just occurred." Danny looked around at his crew, then back at the screen. "We completed the simulation objectives, sir. The Iron Swarm has been defeated." "In 58 minutes, Admiral Zixthol said, his voice tight with disbelief. "Yes, sir. Using tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare." Danny raised an eyebrow. "Sir, I wasn't aware that there were rules about how quickly we were allowed to win." Strategist Velnara's voice joined the conversation, her crystalline tones carrying harmonics of confusion. "Human Commander, your tactics show complete disregard for proper military doctrine. You ignored territorial control, resource management, and strategic positioning." "Yes, ma'am," Danny replied calmly. "Those things seemed inefficient for our objectives." "Inefficient?" Admiral Zixthol's mandibles clicked rapidly. "These are fundamental principles that have guided galactic warfare for millennia." "With respect, sir," Danny said, "those principles might work well for traditional warfare, but they weren't necessary for this particular problem." Lieutenant Nancy Davis and Sergeant Mike Anderson had rejoined the main fleet after their successful infiltration mission. Both were exhausted but triumphant. They had proven that human special operations tactics could work even against advanced alien technology. Pete Johnson was monitoring Coalition communications. "They're having emergency meetings," he reported quietly to Danny. "Multiple species are demanding explanations." On the Coalition command station, emergency sessions were indeed taking place. Representatives from 12 species gathered in heated debate about what they had witnessed. The humans have demonstrated complete ignorance of proper warfare, declared a Vectar general, his mandibles clicking with indignation. Or complete mastery of it, countered an Ethon strategist, her crystalline form shifting through thoughtful blue hues. They achieved in 1 hour what we accomplish in years. It was reckless, insisted a Morden commander. They could have been destroyed. But they weren't, pointed out another voice. They succeeded completely. The debate continued for hours while the humans waited in their ships. Finally, Admiral Zixthol and strategist Velnara requested a private meeting with the human commanders. Danny, along with Jake Morrison, Lisa Grant, and Ben Carter, met with the alien leaders in a secure conference room aboard the station. The atmosphere was tense. "Explain your strategy," Admiral Zixthol said without preamble. Danny looked at his colleagues, then back at the aliens. "We studied the historical data and identified weaknesses in both Iron Swarm programming and Coalition tactical doctrine. The robots were designed to counter traditional galactic warfare methods. We used non-traditional methods." "You mean you cheated?" accused Admiral Zixthol. "No, sir," Jake Morrison interjected firmly. "We used creative problem-solving. Every action we took was within the simulation parameters. We simply approached the problem from a different angle." Strategist Velnara's form shifted through questioning colors. "But your tactics cannot be sustained. The energy costs, the equipment stress, the personnel fatigue. It is unsustainable for prolonged conflict." "You're right," Ben Carter agreed. "Our approach works for short, decisive engagements. But this was a short, decisive engagement. We identified the enemy's critical weakness and exploited it before they could adapt. In traditional warfare, such tactics would be considered irregular," Admiral Zixthol said carefully. Lisa Grant spoke up. "Sir, in human military history, irregular tactics have often been the most effective. When facing a superior opponent, you don't fight on their terms. You change the terms of engagement." The aliens exchanged what might have been glances. Finally, strategist Velnara spoke. "The simulation results are valid," she announced. "The humans achieved complete victory through legitimate tactical innovation." Admiral Zixthol's mandibles clicked slowly. "This will require significant changes to our military doctrine," he admitted. "We have assumed for centuries that there was only one proper way to conduct warfare." "There are many ways," Danny said quietly. "We just showed you one that happened to work for this particular situation." "Indeed," Velnara agreed. "Perhaps it is time for the Coalition to learn new approaches to old problems." The meeting ended with a mutual agreement to study human tactical methods more carefully. As the humans returned to their ships, they could feel the weight of what they had accomplished. They hadn't just won a simulation, they had changed galactic thinking about warfare itself. 3 days after the simulation ended, Commander Jake Morrison found himself in the most important meeting of his life. The Coalition Council chamber was a massive circular room, with representatives from all 12 member species. Each delegation sat in sections designed for their particular biology, creating a rainbow of different forms and colors around the curved walls. At the center of the chamber stood a holographic display showing the complete recording of the human assault on the Iron Swarm. The alien representatives had watched the footage dozens of times, studying every move the humans had made. "The Council recognizes Commander Morrison of Earth," announced the chamber's artificial intelligence in a voice that somehow managed to sound formal in 12 different languages simultaneously. Jake stood and walked to the speaking platform in the center of the room. Around him, hundreds of alien eyes, optical sensors, and energy detection organs focused on his every movement. "Honored representatives," Jake began, "I want to thank the Coalition for inviting humanity to participate in the Nexus War Games. It has been an educational experience for all of us." A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through some sections of the chamber. The Ethon delegation's crystalline forms shifted through colors that indicated ironic humor. Admiral Zixthol rose from the Vectar section. "Commander Morrison, your species has demonstrated tactical capabilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about military science. The Council requires clarification on several points. Of course, Admiral. We're happy to answer any questions. Strategist Velnara's voice chimed like distant bells. Your tactics showed complete disregard for accepted principles of resource conservation and territorial control. How does human military doctrine justify such approaches? Jake had prepared for this question. Honored strategist, human military doctrine is based on achieving objectives as efficiently as possible. If territorial control and resource conservation are necessary for achieving the objective, we use them. If they're not necessary, we don't. But without proper territorial control, you have no strategic depth, objected a Morden general, his bark-like skin dark with confusion. Without resource conservation, you cannot sustain prolonged campaigns. Captain Danny Walsh stepped forward from the human delegation. General, those concerns are valid for prolonged campaigns. But we weren't planning a prolonged campaign. We identified the enemy's critical weakness and eliminated it before they could compensate. A crystalline Ethon representative spoke up, her form shifting through questioning hues. This suggests that humans view warfare fundamentally differently than other species. Can you explain this philosophical difference? Jake exchanged glances with Danny, then answered carefully. In human thinking, every problem has multiple solutions. We don't assume that there's only one correct approach to any challenge. When we studied the Iron Swarm, we didn't ask, how do we fight them according to established doctrine? We asked, what's the fastest way to make them stop fighting? That approach seems chaotic, observed a Vectar strategist. It can be, Jake admitted, but chaos can be a powerful weapon against enemies who expect order and predictability. Lisa Grant stepped forward. If I may add something, honored representatives, the Iron Swarm's artificial intelligence was programmed to counter traditional coalition tactics because those tactics have been used successfully for thousands of years. But that also made the AI predictable. It could only respond to threats it was designed to recognize. Ben Carter joined the explanation. Our rapid strike tactics weren't necessarily superior to coalition methods. They were just different enough that the enemy couldn't adapt quickly. The chamber fell silent as the aliens processed this information. Finally, an elderly Morden commander spoke up. Are you suggesting that the coalition's military doctrine has become obsolete? Not obsolete, Jake replied diplomatically, but perhaps incomplete. Your methods work very well for the types of conflicts you've traditionally faced. Humans might offer additional approaches for unusual situations. Admiral Zixthul's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The simulation results cannot be ignored. The humans achieved in 1 hour what our best strategists accomplish in years. This suggests significant value in their unconventional approaches. Strategist Velnara's form shifted through colors of deep consideration. The Council has discussed this matter extensively. We have reached several conclusions. The Chamber's holographic display changed to show official coalition documents. First, Velnara announced, the Nexus War Games will be restructured to include scenario variations that test non-traditional tactical approaches. Future exercises will evaluate both conventional and innovative strategies. Murmurs of approval came from several alien delegations. Second, Admiral Zixthul continued, the Coalition formally invites Earth to establish a permanent military advisory position. Human tactical specialists will be attached to Coalition strategic planning committees. Jake felt his heart racing. This was far beyond what anyone on Earth had dared to hope for. Third, Velnara said, her crystalline voice rising with significance, the Coalition offers Earth full membership with immediate voting rights and technological sharing, privileges. The Chamber erupted in discussion as representatives from 12 species debated among themselves. Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. Earth had gone from being considered a minor participant to being offered full membership in the galaxy's most powerful alliance. When the noise died down, Admiral Zixthul spoke again. There is one additional matter. The Coalition War College requests permission to send observers to Earth to study human military history and tactical development. Danny smiled. I think our historians and military academies would be very interested in hosting alien students. The exchange would be mutual, Velnara added. Coalition military academies would welcome human students and instructors. Your perspective on warfare could revolutionize galactic military science. Jake looked back at his team. Amy Rodriguez was grinning broadly. Kate Williams looked stunned. Chris Thompson appeared to be frantically taking notes on everything being said. "The human delegation is honored by these offers," Jake said formally. "We accept the Coalition's invitation to full membership and look forward to contributing to galactic security." "Excellent," Admiral Zixthul replied. "There is, however, one request from the Council." "Yes, sir?" The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what Jake had learned was amusement. "In future war games, please consider giving the opposing forces more than 1 hour to develop counter-strategies." Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. At least, Jake assumed the various chirps, chimes, and harmonic vibrations were laughter. Even the formal council chamber couldn't contain the good humor of the moment. As the formal session ended and representatives began mingling, Jake found himself surrounded by alien officers eager to discuss human tactics. A Vectar general wanted to know about historical human battles. An Ethon strategist was fascinated by the concept of thinking outside the box. A Morden commander asked detailed questions about special operations techniques. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Admiral Zixthul approached Jake privately. "Commander," the Admiral said, "I must admit that when we invited humans to these exercises, we expected you to observe and learn. We never imagined that we would be the ones doing the learning." "Admiral," Jake replied, "I think the best learning happens when everyone involved is willing to consider new possibilities." "Indeed," Admiral Zixthul agreed. "Your species has taught the Coalition an important lesson. We had become so focused on perfecting our traditional methods that we stopped looking for better methods." "There's probably room for both approaches," Jake suggested. "Traditional tactics for situations where they work best, and creative alternatives for situations where they don't." The Admiral's mandibles clicked approvingly. "Wisdom beyond your species' years, Commander. I believe this partnership will benefit everyone involved." As the human ships prepared to leave Nexus Station, Jake looked back at the massive structure with very different feelings than when they had arrived. They had come as students, hoping to learn from more advanced species. They were leaving as teachers, having shown the galaxy that there were always new ways to solve old problems. The journey back to Earth would take several weeks, giving the crew time to process what had happened. They had not only exceeded every expectation, but they had fundamentally changed how the galaxy thought about warfare, strategy, and problem-solving. Most importantly, they had proven that being new to something didn't mean being inferior at it. Sometimes a fresh perspective was exactly what was needed to find solutions that experienced experts had overlooked. As the Defiant jumped into hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's new status in the galaxy, Jake smiled. Earth's children had finally found their place among the stars, not by following in others' footsteps but by blazing their own trail.